Hey guys, I just want to do a quick video walkthrough on my FRD version 3. I'm just going to go ahead and take a quick explanation here for all the parts on it. In case you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment here for me. It's just been a little bit of time. I haven't had to actually post the part list here, so I'm just going to run through everything really quick. Of course, this is the Wrap Up Next version 3 FRD. I'm just going to start off here with the wrap up parts that I have. Of course, the chassis is by Wrap Up. The steering wipers are included with the chassis. Do also have the wrap up bulkhead here, the rear bulkhead with the open diff. This is not included with the chassis, even though you will see that on a lot of pictures. The saddle pack holders also by Wrap Up. Upper A arms over here, trying to get a good lighting so you can kind of see it. I know it isn't exactly the most photogenic in this kind of lighting here, and I live in a cave apparently. But those are Wrap Up upper A arms. Y arms are a Wrap Up as well as the rear VX suspension system on that. I believe that covers all the Wrap Up parts that are actually on here. I'll go through the electronics really quick here just to start off. This is a 10-shock 13.5 turn motor that is brushless and sensored. We have that going to a Sanwa Super Vortex Type D ESC, RX472 Sanwa receiver that goes with my M12. I believe it's a SGS01D gyro, which is tucked neatly underneath that. One of the cool things about it is that you can stack the gyro underneath the receiver, and it actually sits very flush and gives you that stealth look for it. I just finished charging a battery here, yay me. And I do have a Sanwa VLS version 2 servo. I do find that this is actually a little bit of overkill in terms of both torque and speed. You really don't need this much, but I already went there, so why not? Going on to the actual drive components on this, I am running the stock gearing in the front. In the rear, this actually happened as kind of a bit of a fluke. I had ordered some aluminum countersteer gears thinking that they would work in the rear drive, but it turns out they wouldn't. However, due to the design of the FRD version 3, if this makes any sense, if you had a drift package, you actually use the front input shaft, what would go to the front diff, in the rear here. So it actually worked out to my advantage, so I have some aluminum countersteer gears. These are for 1.1 countersteer if you were running those in the front, and for that they are actually 40 tooth and a 15 tooth, and so my final drive is altered a little bit by that. I am looking for a little bit more top speed, so I'll most likely adjust this 20 tooth pinion on the secondary drive, so something a little bit bigger to give me a little more top end, since the throttle control on it is pretty good the way it is set up. For the suspension here, there is a lot of RC926 bling, so front and rear damper stays RC926 as well as the front bumper. I find that they have a lot of options on it. It's a great styling to it, and overall very well designed products by RC926. Also by the rear input shaft here is well, not the shaft itself, but the cup for it, RC926 as well. It does have a great look to it and is very durable. So for suspension itself, we do have the MST. Actually, I forgot to mention the Wrap Up low scrub knuckles there, as well as the Wrap Up drive shaft for that. We do have the MST cups to hold everything together here. Springs and dampers. These dampers are actually, believe it or not, Eagle Racing dampers. They have been completely replaced with TRF internals. RC Art dress up on that, so that's where the black look is coming from. Running Speedline hard 32mm progressive springs. I have found that they do offer some of the best springs if you're looking for an extreme hard or an extreme soft. Seems to be better than RC926, Mikuni, or a number of other brands that I've tried out. They are by far my favorite. For our monoshock, this is actually an RC Art monoshock, again with TRF internals. Speedline 30mm hard spring there that we have lifted up with some Mikuni 6mm Type C suspension pins. So essentially the same inserts that would go here to increase your track width, I'm just using up here. And I do have some black wrap-up ones coming in order to go ahead and replace those and complete the look. We do have the nice Tetsugen wires here with some MST, a 4-wire and 3-wire clamp. Moving over to the rear, we have, as I was saying, these are actually, I honestly forgot who the brand is who makes these. I want to say it's Maruma, I think it is. I might be mistaken about that. I'll have to go ahead and double check. But I do like that I do have the aluminum drive gears in the rear for extra durability as opposed to the plastic or graphite ones. The standard come with the drift package with the, I believe it's a 1. Actually, I forget what the actual gear ratio is for this. I want to say it's 1.5, might be mistaken there. Rear springs, same thing. These are RC Art dress up on an Eagle Racing damper with TRF internals on it. These are running a Speedline 32mm super soft spring. They're by far my favorite soft spring. The oil for these are actually 10 weight in the rear, 80 weight in the front. Again, I do like extremes when it comes to my setups. I find that it gives me very consistent driving experience for that. For the mounts, these are the Eagle Racing Type 2 stealth mounts. Normally they come with magnets. We replace that with Velcro. I find it's a little bit easier to adjust the Velcro for bodies for a better fitment as opposed to the magnets, even though the magnets are a little bit quicker and a little bit more convenient. If you run one shell, I do recommend running the magnet since it's fire and forget for putting that on and off. The servo, I have a little bit of active bling to it. I do find that Active Hobby's latest products have been very well machined, very high quality. I wish they would stop putting labels on everything because, I mean, I guess it's good and you know exactly what it is. It's a strut servo mount. This is actually designed for a TTO2 or a DRB, I believe, but I find it does fit perfectly on the FRD. These aren't actually the holes that are intended for use for the side servo mount. It's actually these two over here, but it lines up with those perfectly, so I'm going ahead and using it. The arm is the Active Hobby servo arm. This is one of the longest ones that I've seen, which I like because it does give me the most leverage when it comes to steering angle. One of my few gripes for the FRD itself, the front track width is actually limited by the throw of this these wrap-up wipers that do come with the chassis. What I found is whether you're running the extension forward or not, what will happen is if you have the servo mounted like this, and I do not believe that on the version 3 you can mount it like you could on the 1 or the 2, where it had the little extension plate and it would mount the servo, I guess it would be horizontally in this case you would say. Which I felt allowed for a little bit more throw. The issue here is with these tiny wipers, even with the extensions for it, after you throw to a certain extent, if I had a wider track width, it would actually need a little more leverage to it, and I find that you can't get any more because essentially, trying to explain as best I can, it will just come to the point where this can't throw any further. It's just pulling this towards it. There's no more angle that it can get out of it. So one of my few gripes, and because of that I do have to run wider offset wheels to get this flush with most shells, which does sacrifice a little bit of the smoothness on the steering. So these are actually 7mm offset wheels. These were cut down from a 26mm wheel, so they're 20mm running. Personally, I run the Speedline CG1 Narrows up front, and these are the brand new top line HDPE tires that were made in collaboration with RC926. They are by far my favorite tire for carpet so far. I do have a couple more that I'm going to be trying out this week. Some Kazama, I believe, Rev Spec tires. And we have some other ones coming as well to test those out. Let's see if I'm missing anything here. I think that covers just about everything. I do have some spacers on top of these, so there are these are actually effectively 9mm offset wheels. And in the rear, 7mm offset with no spacers for that. Come to think of it, I have replaced the drive shafts back here. These are the D-like adjustable drive shafts. Initially, I thought these would be something similar to the Active Hobby ones, which actually use a set screw. You have to manually adjust the width for it. These are actually spring-loaded, so they are adjustable. Not only do they have a little bit of travel along with your suspension in order to give it a nice, good fit in the cup there, not to wear out your drive shaft cups. Additionally, if you want to run more or less camber, it will go ahead and adjust dynamically. These are actually the longer versions of that, so while I do run a little bit of camber, if you're looking for the extreme hella flush spaceship UFO look to it, you can actually get that with these shorter drive shafts that they do offer. And I think that wraps up everything on this. By far one of my favorite chassis. I have been driving a whole bunch of rear-wheel drive ones, including the FXX, one of the other popular ones out there, a number of conversions, and a number of Eagle Racing chassis like the R31 and TA05. I do find that this chassis performs admirably, and for rear-wheel drive, I have driven you might have seen it, the Outclip rear-wheel drive for a while. I do find that the front motor chassis are better handling, and they do drift a little bit more realistically if you are going for that scale look. If you're looking for something with a little more hooked up, more traction on it, then definitely those mid motor or those rear midship motors with extra weight on the back do seem to work pretty well if that's what your goal is. But I prefer a slower, more controlled drift look. I prefer doing tandems. So a lot of the times you'll see that I'm slowing everything down, and that's also why we've moved to these new tires. I find that they're a lot slower than the CG ones, but still very controllable. So definitely enjoying those. Only thing I think I didn't hit the point on here is Hobby King batteries here. I just went ahead and took off the stickers for them because they were getting a little bit worn from running on them on my R31 since it wasn't really designed to fit saddles, so I was peeling the labels off a little bit. These are 5.1 milliamp. I've also ran the 5.0s and I have the 5.6s coming here for me. Really do have to say value for what you pay for those is ridiculous, and I highly recommend going through Hobby King for batteries. I just want to do a quick shout out here. A lot of people helped out with this chassis. Bonsai Hobby did have a little bit of an issue here, a little bit of miscommunication, which gave me a little bit of a heart attack, but they were definitely able to follow through on that. No, they have been having a little bit of issues shipping some products, but lately I've been ordering even more stuff through them, and they've been very fast, very consistent. Also RC Art, a lot of products have been secured through there. It does bring me up to another point that I have forgotten. My suspension pins on here, I do actually have the, very difficult to see here, they're actually Yokomo aluminum ones. They're actually a blue shade to them, a little bit tricky to see them here. I kind of tried to hide them, but you can see a little glimpse of blue there is for those suspension mounts. I do want to go ahead and get those de-anodized and have them set up in black. Also, shout out to Rare Arts, Ando-san, who always helps me secure a couple of hard-to-find parts stateside. He does work through Tatsugen, and I find that he can find just about anything that you're looking for. And of course, there are some rare parts that everyone has trouble with, but most often than not, he can secure some very tricky to find parts. Shout out to Raikou Drift. I do have the optional chassis stiffener here in the middle. Thank you so much for going ahead and securing one of those for me as well. Randy Beard, who also just trying to help out with the rear arts, and not the near panic attack for not securing FRD. But it's here, happy with it, love it. I don't see myself really getting any more chassis, and this one's getting pretty much fully blinged out right now. The TT02 FRD, I'm not going to lie, I'm very intrigued by that. Would love to see more of that. I might pick up one as a chassis for running outdoors, or just as a backup chassis in case I'm working on something bigger with this. But I think that covered just about everything. I know this is quite a long video running on 13 minutes here. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and discuss anything about the chassis. And just want to thank you guys for watching, and keep drifting fun.